Hey there folks, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and the most amazing thing about Warzone right now is after the crazy Cold War integration and series of nerfs, there is no real identifiable meta in Warzone right now. And that's a really good thing. For once in Warzone you can use a whole variety of weapons, and if you use these guns you'll actually, for once, not be punished for using that. It's really cool, it's nice to have, and for once people can actually have the freedom to try different weapons as they please. The problem with having a defined meta such as the DMR is that if you don't use it, you effectively just get rinsed by it, and that's kind of how it's been for a while now. Now in this video today, I'm going to be bringing you guys the most effective assault rifles, including every single meta loadout for those assault rifles. This is a really great list. I'm listing probably anywhere between sort of 1 and 6 weapons at the moment, but we may add a few more as the video goes on. Everybody uses assault rifles / SMGs, or assault rifles and sniper rifles, and they really are the bread and butter of Warzone. And I want to give you guys what is, in my opinion, the best assault rifles in the game right now for you to take to action. And something I should specify here is we're not relying on statistics, and the reason for that is because although a gun can be statistically good on paper, it doesn't mean that it lines up properly in Warzone. The best example of this is the AS-VAL, which has one of the fastest time to kills in Warzone, but because of its reduced magazine size and fast fire rate, means that it's really only good for killing one player, and if you're in a game of duos, trios or quads, that's simply not a useful assault rifle in the grand scheme of things. Even in solos, you tend to find that once somebody starts shooting, lots of other people randomly show up too. In the background today, you've got a little bit of gameplay of me using a variation of ARs. I think I actually ended up using the M13 quite a bit in this gameplay. And that's just going to be in the background whilst we talk about the meta loadouts, which you'll also see on screen. We're going to start at the very top of the list and work our way down, and using full explanations as to why these guns are as good as I say they are. So at first place we have 2 weapons. The first one is the CR56, which is the Amax, and the second one is my personal favourite weapon in Warzone right now, the groza. The Amax is the 3rd fastest time to kill weapon in Call of Duty Warzone right now, clocking in at 476 milliseconds. And it's really incredible over range, very controllable, has a high damage output, and you can spec this gun to use a VLK sight or a HOLO sight and have really good close or long range engagements. I think it's kind of the master of all trades right now, and if you learn to compensate for the recoil, which really isn't a lot of recoil, even as a controller player I say that, it's easily one of the best guns in the game right now. The Amax is kind of the master of all ranges at the moment as far as an AR goes, with the only drawback being the limited 45 round magazine. Naturally, having such a really fast time to kill, and also bearing in mind that this gun has one of the highest headshots of 56 with an even higher multiplier to that, it's something that can do a lot of damage output with fewer amounts of bullets, which is why that 45 round magazine doesn't necessarily hurt as much. But for me right now, without a shadow of a doubt, the best AR in the game is probably the groza. And the reason I have the groza as joint first is because the Amax is incredibly good at all kind of range scenarios. The groza is very good at close and medium range. The groza is effectively a 7.62 based AR/SMG hybrid, and it ranks in my opinion above the FFAR for a number of reasons. To start with, the groza has a 60 round magazine, which is really incredible, and is something that is very much worthwhile using. Even more incredibly though, the groza has lower recoil than the FFAR, is more controllable, is faster in terms of aiming down sight and also in movement speed. What's crazy about all of these statistics is that the FFAR has a time to kill of 467 milliseconds, but the groza only has 477. So in sacrificing 10 milliseconds of time to kill, you're getting a weapon that is both more accurate, is more controllable, is faster in terms of aim down sight speed, has a higher magazine count, and has a slower rate of fire, even though it only clocks in 10 milliseconds lower. That means that this gun is basically god tier. It's easily better in my opinion than the FFAR, although that is my 2nd placed weapon. And the fully spec groza, which you're seeing on screen here, is in my opinion one of the most controllable weapons in the game. I should also mention as well that it has the same amount of headshot damage as the FFAR. It has a higher chest shot damage, clocking at 3 damage higher than the FFAR, and 2 lower on both the extremities, meaning the legs and arms. But that's pretty incredible for a gun that has a higher magazine capacity, is easier to control and easier to get headshots with, and again, is just a slower rate of fire. Having such a close time to kill is really, really impressive. The groza feels and maneuvers like an SMG, but has the damage output of an assault rifle, and that's a pretty devastating combo in Warzone, and I would definitely recommend running a long-range sniper rifle with the groza. Next is the FFAR, and although this gun is technically weaker than the groza in terms of the fact that it has a smaller magazine, a higher rate of fire, which again on paper is a good and bad thing because you lose bullets quickly, and just has same and similar damage, the FFAR is still a melter. It's still a people melter. The reason the FFAR comes in second is that in terms of medium to long range, it's very, very weak, and I would actually argue that it's less accurate at medium range than the groza is. And I also think the hip fire spread is quite high for the FFAR, even though the groza is very similar, but the groza is a tighter hip fire spread from the get-go. So the FFAR is a people melter, but you do need to aim down sight to get the most out of it, and it is a little bit slower in some places than the groza, and doesn't really do as well at medium range in my opinion in some scenarios. From third place onwards, the actual pecking order and overall impressiveness of these weapons tightens quite significantly in my opinion. In third place, I have the M13, and the reason I have the M13 is quite simple. This gun is a 60 round mag bullet hose at extreme amounts of ranges and has a very high headshot multiplier despite having very little recoil. It also has a 900 RPM, which is equal to the ASVAL and equal to the FFAR. So this gun really is a medium to long range bullet hose, and I think the stats kind of speak for itself in this case. If you want to use a fully spec'd M13, it's very competitive in Warzone right now. The headshot multiplier makes it really good, the rate of fire makes it really good, and having that extended mag makes it really good as well. Overarchingly, I will say that you will fall flat in some cases. SMGs will definitely beat you at close ranges. You will get outgunned by some assault rifles in some scenarios. But overarchingly, if you're looking for a gun that kind of does it all, the M13 in my opinion does that. I think it's better than the M4A1, I think it's better than the Kilo, I think it's better than most of the assault rifles like the XM4 and Krig, which are kind of low recoil rate of fire weapons that are kind of accurate. For me personally, the M13 is faster, feels quicker, has a higher RPM, and is equally as accurate as those weapons, but it's just there's something special about it. I think you have to use it to really understand it in my opinion, but having that really high rate of fire combined with that really high headshot multiplier and basically minimal recoil makes this in my opinion the most versatile all-rounder beyond the Amax. In fourth place is the AK-47 Cold War edition, and the reason for this is pretty crazy. The actual Modern Warfare AK is really good in game. I think people underestimate how good the AK-47 is, especially if you have the Romanian barrel. That thing makes it really stable and it's really powerful. But the AK-47 from Cold War actually has a higher headshot damage, higher body and extremity shot damage, a higher RPM, and feels and moves faster than the other assault rifles in game. The AK-47 Cold War edition is in my opinion one of the most slept on weapons in the game right now, and if you fully spec it to the meta loadout that you can see on screen here, I think it's actually pretty devastating. The final two weapons we're going to mention in this list today are the Ram 7 and the GRAU 556. The Ram 7 is a very powerful and high rate of fire weapon, clocking in at 860 RPM. It's also relatively quick and snappy. The only issue with the Ram 7 is that it has a strange recoil pattern in that the gun kind of pulls you to the right whilst you're aiming. It's really good, really effective, and I think it kind of stands out a little bit more from the overall assault rifle crowd than most other weapons. And finally, we have the GRAU 556. The reason I mention this one is that the GRAU 556 is probably the most accurate weapon in Warzone in my opinion still. It's exceedingly accurate aiming down sight, even over extreme ranges, and has a reasonable reload speed and reasonable fire rate. And of course, you could top this off with a huge magazine, and you can make the GRAU a really deadly long-range weapon. Fundamentally, it will get outgunned by most ARs in medium and close quarters situations, but at long range, the GRAU is the most accurate and will likely do the most damage and gain the most headshots. It also has probably the least amount of recoil as well. So folks, that's it for all of my best ARs in Warzone at the moment. I hope you enjoyed some of the gameplay in the background of some of the various weapons that we were using today. I was playing with Westy and Broken Machine, which was good fun. But these guns are insane. I do highly recommend checking them out. I think they are some of the best in Warzone right now, and I do highly recommend it. We'll likely see more assault rifles enter the fold in the future, but fundamentally for now, and probably for the foreseeable future, until we have a new Warzone map or something of that variety, these guns are going to suit you best. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, feel free to leave a like and a comment, and consider subscribing if you want to see more overarching live streams and more video content of Warzone as well. Thank you very much for checking out this video today. It's been me, TheTacticalBrit, and I'll catch you again in the next one.